All right. Is it Kwame is here or Alyssa?
Kwame.
Oh, hi Kwame.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're good. How are you?
Doing all right. We're all set on this end.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
So welcome everybody to the City of Kingston Finance and Audit Committee meeting for August the 9th, 2023, 6:32 p.m. Welcome. We have 3 members present and 2 joining us virtually, Steve Shabbat and Bob Dennison. And we will get rolling. First item of business, as per usual, is the comptroller's update.
And is it public comment? Oh, there's not. I thought there was one of the past. So I can just watch on Zoom.
Yeah, are you part of the Cuba?
I was on the chairs and yes.
If you're part of that presentation, then that's on the agenda. So.
Okay, a couple hours ago, I emailed everyone the financial reports. I brought with me today the narrative report along with the sales tax report. Sarah, just so you know, so what I do every month is I do a brief overview of where we're at financially.
For the year to date.
For the year to date.
Yep.
I have a narrative usually that just highlights some of the, different things that are happening with our revenues and expenses. And our largest revenue item that is economically sensitive other than property tax, sales tax. So I always provide a sales tax update.
Okay.
So just speaking about sales tax, we've received an additional payment, I believe, since the last report. We're currently on a year-to-date basis, almost 1% over where we were last year. I have received notification through the state website of where the next payment's going to be. It looks like we haven't received it yet, but it appears that will be up over 6% or roughly 6% from last year. I didn't bring that exact figure, but we are tracking pretty close to budget right now. On a year-to-date basis, we're within $71,000 of where we were last year, or $71,000 over, which is good, but from a percentage standpoint, it's just under 1% increase year over year. So our budget is $18,955,000. Last year, we finished at $19,000,000 change. We seem to be on track for a pretty similar number this year. A lot can change with the rest of the year we get posted, but the last several payments have been relatively stable, with the exception of the final May pay or the first May payment. Okay, so in terms of the narrative report, some of the trends that were in the positive have now moved to the negative. Over time, it's probably took the biggest jump. We're now at 51.4% spent through June. I would expect that trend to continue. That we're going to have pressure on the overtime. We've had some staffing vacancies, tends to push the overtime number up a bit. So I would expect that to continue. I think you'll see continued pressure on some of the categories up on the positive side. You might see some more things slipping to the bottom next few months. So certainly we're tighter than we were last year. The first paragraph, I give you an update of where we're at this year versus last year. For comparison purposes, really, at this time last year, we were 41.4% spent, and this year we're 45.4% spent. So our expenditures up about 4% over where we were last year. The size of our budget, it's not an insignificant amount. So continue to see pressure on expenses, and our revenues are relatively flat with last year, other than, say, interest revenue, which everyone knows what's happening with interest rates, and they're jumping up. So we are seeing additional interest revenue, but we're not seeing a lot of growth in other areas. So if anyone has any questions, by all means, give me a call or send me an email. Once again, the audit, we'll have the audited 2022 numbers by September 30th. At this point, I'm not aware of any major changes to our numbers, but I'll reserve judgment until we get the final report. But once we have that, I'll forward it along.
Any questions for John?
Oh, I was just noticing that the service contracts are 62.7% expended, and is that just because you have contracts maybe that are heavy in the spring and summer as opposed to the fall, or is that a trend also?
Some of that's a trend. It's funny, we actually had talked about that one last month. Some of it is, we're waiting for some budget transfers to come in. One of them is a some grant funded costs where I do expect transfers to pick up some additional revenue to offset those expenses. But overall, yeah, it is trending a little bit high in certain areas. I think the police department was one that was trending a bit high.
Okay.
With some of their computer related needs. That a lot of the squad cars. And,
Sure. Okay, well,
So
thank you.
I believe there are body cameras and related equipment. Driving some of those cars.
Great. The next item of business, do we need to move, since Barbara is not here, we don't need to move item number 1 from whole business to the front, do we?
I don't believe so. However, Bartek is going to be the one that presents that, so you may want to just put it back to back with this too, so he doesn't have to wait to the end.
He has 3 things in here.
Bartek is,
I only have the 2, the
Well-
CPA fee.
Well, no, I'm just saying if he's presenting on both items from, he's not presenting on parking management, sorry.
Parking, that is an old, that I had asked to have that removed.
Oh, okay.
There's no talk of parking. That was mine. It's done.
Just shorten up the agenda a little bit.
Okay. In that case, we'll go with Bartek's 2 items. Let's go first, I'll go to item number 3, the ETPA fee budget transfer.
Yes. So as we all know, Kingston is part of the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. DHCR does charge $20 per unit on an annual basis to administer the program in the city of Kingston. We're well aware that there is this fee that's charged annually. However, I did not put it in my budget because some of the uncertainty last year relating to some of the ongoing litigation. However, I have now received that invoice. And so I am requesting a budget transfer in the Housing Initiative's budget. I do want to note that we are passing on this, municipalities have the option of passing this cost on to property owners. And most municipalities do that. We will be doing the same. So there's no expected financial impact to the city for this trip.
Okay. Quick question, John. Does that mean, though, that this is coming out of contingency at the moment, or can we hold off on it
This
in
is
the sense of expecting the revenues?
In terms of the revenue, Bartek, I mean, when would the actual billing occur? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I would, as soon as I receive approval, I would start the billing process.
Okay. No, I think you can do the revenue offset. Bartek, just a quick question for you. Not to ambush you here, but so as we're looking at everything here, the question arose just on the calculation. The 1,115 apartments times 20, we're coming up with a slightly different number. Is that, can you just check that? Is it 1,155 apartments? That would be the times 20 would equal your 23.1, or should that 23.1 be a lower number, like 22.3? If you have that information available.
It should be 1,155.
Okay, so it's a typo in the number of apartments.
Okay, yeah,
All
so
right.
it's, yep, it's 1,155.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I figured you would know what the number was. Okay. All right, so the transfer as it stands is okay.
The 23-1?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Any questions directed to project?
Yes, so Bartek, would the calendar year for the fee then be like August 1st, 2022 to August 1st? Like, how would that work?
Yeah, it's for the, they have a different, the state has a different fiscal year. So it's technically for the 2022, 2023 fiscal year is that the state fiscal year that this billing is for.
Okay, and then we'll have to do 23. 24, yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Any other questions?
If say these bills don't get paid, can we add them to tax levy assessment?
That would be a question for court counsel.
Court counsel.
Yeah.
Yeah. If and when, there's collection issues, I'm obviously prepared to work with Corp Counsel to solve that.
Thank you.
All right, then do we have a motion to discuss?
Motion.
Michelle Hirsch, second. Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? There will be zero financial impact. Sorry. So this is basically a transfer from service contracts to fees and miscellaneous in the Department of Housing. So, any discussion?
Since I know there's no way around it, I knew this was a fee that would be passed along when we passed the ETPA.
All right. Bob, any discussion there? What color should the groom's tie be? Okay, so there's a delay between us and.
No discussion. I think it's wonderful.
Okay, great, thank you. And then, so Bartek, we will go to the item that's under old business relating to the transfer of properties.
We gotta go.
Oh, sorry.
We gotta vote.
I just-
And Steve can vote, you just need to ask for permission, and Sarah's subbing for Ward 7. So she's
Oh,
voting.
Bob, what we need
Yes,
to.
I'm subbing for Bob,
Bob is not, he can't vote,
Oh, okay,
but I'm subbing for Ward 7.
or whichever, or it
Right.
doesn't really matter if you're subbing.
okay.
He's
Yes.
voting.
So we have to ask Steve, what?
Permission to sign for him.
Oh, Steve, do I have your permission to sign for you? Whatever I think your vote should be?
Now.
All right, sorry. In that case, we'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously 4-0.
Something that calls from the committee report. Oh, are you doing that?
Oh, I see.
We never know whether to sign above or below. So
Yeah.
I want Rich to sign.
we actually
Yeah.
ask them
So
to
you
give you the
just,
form.
yeah.
I'll just follow
Cross
everybody
somebody
else's
else's
stuff.
name and.
Just as long as your signature is on there, your check is in the correct box. All right, then, we are moving on to the item under old business relating to the transfer of property, surplus city-owned property to the land bank.
Yes, I introduced this last month, but at that time, Corporation Counsel was not comfortable with the committee moving ahead with this request. However, Corporation Counsel is now okay with moving forward with this request based on the updated resolution that I submitted yesterday, which makes the sale of these 7 properties to the land bank contingent upon further action that we will be taking internally to clarify the value of the properties and any potential title issues of these 7 properties. So with that, I am requesting that these 7 properties be transferred to the land bank. As my initial letter stated, this is in line with the disposition policy of this regarding the transfer of surplus properties. I'll take any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Bartek on this?
Good.
All right.
I just have one question, and it's because I'm new and I'm just seeing this for the first time. Why were the 10 properties, it says in your cover letter, that 10 properties were rejected? Can you mention just why those were rejected?
Yeah, so the we offered 17 properties to the land bank and they only accepted 7. And they have the right to reject any properties. The 10 that they rejected are very odd lots in most cases where it's not possible to build anything on them.
Okay.
It's not even possible to put a park on them in most cases, just because of the odd shape or odd configuration.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to discuss,
Motion.
Michelle Hirsch, second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0, and the resolution reads, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the transfer of surplus properties to the Kingston City Land Bank as attached.
Thank you. And Rennie, I just wanted to mention that Sue Cahill also asked me to present her item.
Okay. See, it was 3. I knew it. Somewhere deep in my soul. All right. In that case, we'll go to that one and we'll hold on the other thing. All right. So this has to do with some fees relating to adopting the new form-based code. What's it about, Bartek? Sue?
Yeah, so this is a pretty simple, there's some new processes in the form-based code and we don't have fees associated with those processes. So this is, now we don't have just a site plan, we have a minor and major site plan. And we also are introducing this new concept of minor waiver and major waiver. Prepared some fees associated with those new items. And, I think I know we discussed she's committed to watching how these play out, making any edits if necessary, within 6 to 12 months. But this is, for now at least, she has these fees for these new items.
All right, any questions for Bartek relating to this issue?
I'm just curious, like when the training will start for everybody so that they can move forward.
Training for
Like,
when
I thought Dover Cole was going to come in and like train the planning department and the planning board and.
Yeah, the training of the planning department and building safety department has already happened.
Okay.
So when this is sort of up to the planning department in terms of if and when they want to offer any additional training to the planning board, that's obviously a possibility. But in terms of the staff training, that has already happened.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, then do we have a motion to discuss?
Motion.
Michelle Hirsch, second. Steve Shabbat.
Where'd you get faster?
Any discussion?
Just pointing to Steve.
The resolution reads from planning, amend the city fee schedule, shul. I don't think that's what they mean. Schedule for planning as follows: add minor site plan, flat fee of $200, minor waiver, $50 for each required, change title and add site plan base fee, which becomes major site plan base fee. All fees and subcategories remain with additions of minor waiver, $50 for each required, major waiver, residential 1, 2, and 3 family units, $150 for each required, and major waiver, which is for commercial entities, $350 each required. All right, so any discussion?
Wish everyone well. Good luck. And force be with you.
Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It passes unanimously. Zoop. Zoop. All right, thank you, Bartek. Do you want to present on any of these other ones while you're here?
For now, thank you, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The other item that will require voting is a budget transfer in the assessor's office. This is an internal transfer moving monies around within the department, so there's no financial impact. Do you, anything to say?
Yeah, I spoke with Dan Baker, I told him I'd represent him here in case there are questions, but we talked about the need for his transfer, it's zero impact, like I said. The largest transfer of the three was for data processing support, it says report, but it's actually data processing support. It's for sales data software that he received notification of a price jump in that was unanticipated. The rest of them, I think, are pretty explanatory, vehicle maintenance, and then he does have new staff and he's looking to do additional training for him. So that's really it.
Okay, any questions for John regarding this transfer?
No.
All right, the resolution reads from assessment description, $1,125.24 from consultants to data processing report, $827.03 from consultants to vehicle maintenance, $500 from consultants to dues, seminar, and associated fees. Estimated financial impact is 0. Motion to discuss?
Second.
All right, that's the democratic process of it. All right, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 4-0. Unanimously, in other words. Luke, okay. Michelle.
Thank you.
And then, let's see, we did that.
It's just the plate plan, but I don't see anybody from Hula here. And I just texted.
What is Dawn?
Are you over here? You're doing a presentation?
He is.
Oh, I thought it
De
was,
facto.
He's here, he's doing a presentation.
okay.
Okay.
Should I come to the table?
Sure, come to the table.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So, Sarah being here is handy, so I can sort of give a background and, you can hear the, so the Pike Plan refers to the canopy
Yes.
of the stores in Uptown. And this, this has been a, multi-year conversation. What the conversation is, it's in bad physical condition, it leaks and it's rotting. About 10 years ago, it was rebuilt poorly. Lawsuits and it was a really, the city was really taking advantage of by the contractor. And so we're in a position that it's so bad that it either needs to be rebuilt, not going down and starting from scratch, but each section needs to be rebuilt. Maybe you have to see what kind of shape each section is in. So the mayor did a survey a few years back that by and large the public was in favor of keeping the Pike Plan. He asked the question, should we keep it or should we take it down?
It's a good question.
Terrible sociology, though.
Cuba asked our members, should we keep it or should we take it down? And the general consensus is to keep it. And it really is a signature of Uptown, a signature of historic Kingston. And our feeling is that if we're going to keep it, we should invest in it properly so it really not only is in good shape, but structurally, but also looks great. It's going to be a signature of our town. It should be painted regularly and well lit. And if it gets, if a piece breaks, it should be fixed quickly. And but over the last 10 years, this has not been the case. It has not been. The annual maintenance for the Pike Plan has been between $5,000 and $7,000 budget, and that includes electricity, believe it or not. So there's really no money. Now, last year the mayor did add a little bit more to the budget, but it's still a fraction of what it needs to be to maintain it. So there's really two issues. One, bigger budget, annual budget to maintain it. But two, we feel that that the city council should consider having it properly rebuilt so that it stands the test of time. And while I was on the council, I met numerous times with the city engineer, John Schulteis, and Ed Norman. And so the question is always, how much will this cost? And to fix it properly. And the answer is, it depends. We have to peel away each section and look underneath and see how bad it is. There's really, so, John Schulteis and Ed came together, they came to some numbers, maybe it was $1.5 million to, there was one section by Boydson's, formerly Boydson's Restaurant, that was so bad, the city did put out bids and did repair that section.
Well, that was due to a car crash.
I don't think so, but, okay. Anyway, it was so expensive. And if you extrapolate the cost of that one section and replace all of them, it would be $4 or $5 million to do the whole thing. So we recognize that this is going to be a multi-million-dollar project. And, but we believe that because it's a signature part of Kingston, that it should be something that the city should take on. The city owns it, and the city is charged with maintaining it. And there's no way that John Schulteis and Ed Norman are going to give an actual cost. So I don't know how we would deal with that. This is clearly something that a bond would need to be floated for. But to say, well, let's make it 2 million and see how it goes. I don't know how that would work, John. But the point is, but the point is, it's really, we lift up the section and we see how bad it is, and then we fix it properly.
So, and the other question, just so you know, and Bob knows, I don't know if you're part of any of the previous discussions, but one of the things we discussed was the potential to actually take it down. Problem is that sounds like it might be cheap, but it's not, for two reasons. First is that because it's anchored in the facades of all the buildings, there'd be a fair amount of work to remediate those anchors, and everything you take out. You then got this other problem, which is for the renovation we did 10 years ago, we borrowed money from the federal government, and that money is in a sense still out there. So if we tore down the structure, there was some concern that we would actually have to pay back some of those federal funds. And so we had a number of around $900,000 that would probably cost to take down the structure. And that was...
Sorry, was that confirmed, or, because remember the conversations, I thought that, and we wouldn't have to.
We wouldn't. You were right until a point, and then there was a date, 3 years ago, which it was no longer.
Yeah.
It still would cost a lot of money to tear it down.
Oh, yeah, to repair, yeah.
No, to tear it down.
To repair the building.
Yes. All right.
The 700 was just to tear it down.
Yeah.
It was more than 700.
Yeah.
And so also the survey, as I said, was not sophisticated in any way, shape, or form. It was basically just a question, and it was put out into the public.
And also, we didn't say, would you pay more taxes in order to fund this?
So, in other words, it was a popularity contest. And
Yeah, it didn't have the accurate, people didn't know the
Didn't know.
numbers. I mean, we don't even know
responding
the
to.
numbers, but there was no even guesswork on the numbers, so.
And we don't know if it was
pretty-
people who were all of town, people all over Kingston, people from, wherever.
Right.
So
Right.
it's very hard to know from that number. So
Interesting. Yeah.
we thank you for putting this back on our radar. It would probably more in terms of thinking about cost, we could consider having a design investigation. I think that would be the first place to start.
Right.
So, that would not necessarily be in the expertise of anybody who works for the city. So it'd be a question of hiring.
And that would be, they would have to open the hood of each section. So
Yeah.
that would be an extensive ordeal, but I agree that needs to be done.
Yeah. So the perennial problem has been, there's the first decision, keep it, tear it down. And then the second question is, if you tear it down, what are the costs and consequences? If you keep it, what are the costs and consequences, right?
Right.
And so, this is a major deal, because another aspect of it is then there's the question of who's benefiting from the structure. To what extent are the businesses benefiting? So it used to be that the businesses paid into a fund
I was going to ask that question. actually.
for supporting this, but they argued successfully, 70 years ago, we were trying to figure out the date, a while back, that it should be the city's burden. Right? But again, that's something that might have to be reconsidered, because we're talking about this huge amount of cost, who's benefiting and where, because the other part of it is it benefits Uptown, but are we doing something equal for Rawdale? Right. So those are some of the considerations. Now, we've talked in the past a little bit, I've mentioned before, this concept of the citizen assembly, and I'm wondering if that might be something to think of in this particular situation, because it's been very difficult to figure out a solution.
What does that mean?
Yes.
It's just a process where we would, in essence, gather a group of 30, 40 residents of Kingston. There's an involved process.
Like public hearing?
Is it like,
No.
is it like a forum maybe, or a public forum?
I would rather explain it in detail than try to get that. The point is that you would have a group of citizens who would come up with a specific plan, who would make these decisions, look at the different possibilities, and come up with these kind of things we're talking about. Keep it, tear it down. What are the costs and what are the benefits?
So essentially, a committee.
It would be a committee, yes, but it's different from the council choosing people, because the idea is you would want to have a robust representation of people from all over Kingston. And that's what the process yields.
To number one, decide, keep it or fix it or remove it, and then, all the options for either.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's something to consider.
I know you've done a lot of research on this kind of advisory group. How are they typically formed in terms of if it's on the council selecting the members? Do you have the answers in your watch?
How long do you have? Well, I guess very quickly, and I'm hesitant to do this because people often have immediate reactions to it, and it's much more involved than what I can say in a few minutes.
Well,
But
if you don't want to
basic
answer
idea-
the question, that's fine, but if you, maybe we could have another conversation, but.
Well, the basic idea is that you would send a letter out to a large number of people in Kingston and say, here's this problem, we're looking for people with expertise and a finite amount of time. That's the crucial thing, finite amount of time. Usually you get about 3-4% people answering, then out of that, you choose randomly.
You get a
It's a whole
sample.
process called sortition, yeah. And so the advantage of that is there's a political advantage, which is you're going to get a wide array of people who are involved. You're going to have people with different areas of expertise and various values. And the administrative value of it is that they come up with an answer so that there's kind of a pure thinking about it. Any elected official is probably going to have, a political angle through which they filter a lot of this discussion. So it's a way of removing this particular kind of decision from that noise of politics. So
That seems to be add a lot of time to the process.
not necessarily. The thing is that you can give it a fairly finite period for discussion, a month, and you say people give up 4 Saturdays. And that's probably enough time for them to work through this process of this, of an issue like this one, because it's finite, it's very clear what the issues are. It's not something, major like abortion, although in Ireland, they used this process to develop the legislation that eventually made abortion legal in Ireland. So you can do it at the national level, you can do it at the city level. And I've been talking to a lot of people at BARD, and there's money available because they would like to see this experimented with. So this would be, I think, a great example of how we could use that process to come up with a really good solution. Something to think about.
No, so I have a question too. So once the citizen assembly, let's say they make a recommendation, is the council bound by the recommendation because the citizen assembly doesn't have access to budgetary figures and they don't know the priorities of the
We make all
city
kinds of,
relative to
so a
other
crucial
cities
thing
spending
is
or-
that, to answer your question directly, no, the council would not be bound completely to whatever the decision is. So for example, what if they came back and said, well, we think it's a great addition to the city, but we want to really make it, appealing, so we think it should be gold plated,
But exactly. So,
right? So clearly we would have to say, no, that's, we agree with everything else, that part is, that's beyond our potential budget. The other part though is that you don't just throw everybody in the room and say, give us an answer.
Mhm.
There's a period where the people you have consultants who are running the process. And so what they do is they work with people to first express their values so that people are able to understand where other folks are coming from, which then makes it possible for them to work together in a way that they don't immediately set up, I've got my decision made.
I understand.
Because
Like a workshop.
yeah, it's like a workshop, but it's more involved than a workshop because you're really working with the people who are in the room to develop an outcome.
So would there be a point person on the council or the finance committee to shepherd this process?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's shepherded in the sense of making sure we hire the consultants, get the right people, get the money lined up. And because we've been talking about this, I'm fairly sanguine that we could do it in not a huge amount of time.
Right.
So
then the finance committee would take that on.
eventually we would make a decision.
But no, we'd empower this group and get the process started.
Yeah, or it might be through the mayor. I'm not sure of the exact finance process but yeah. So.
And do you feel that this would be an advantage compared to the other decisions that have been made because it involves a greater representation from the community?
Because we've had to complete impasse twice at
Oh,
least.
see, that I didn't know.
Yeah,
That's-
we brought this
I
forward
see.
a couple
I see.
times, the survey was well intended, but kind of flopped.
Right, I see.
So I think we can't just sit on this and, I'm all for trying a new idea and I hear you volunteering to set this up.
I would do that, yeah.
Well, that worked.
Let's try something.
And does the rebuilding involve any kind of a redesign or some sort of improved design that would make it more sustainable over time compared to the previous construction?
Well, there, for instance, you might want to look at what they did in Burlington, Vermont.
Okay,
So it's a canopy, but it's done in quite a different way. So that would be a third alternative, which would be a complete redesign of the whole canopy.
But if it
Because,
turns out after they investigate that it is bad throughout, then the third option may be the same amount of money.
right,
it's sort
exactly.
of like, right.
It might even
go
be
into
cheaper.
adaptive reuse versus brand new construction because it becomes more cost effective.
Yeah.
And there might be new materials, so it wouldn't rot as rapidly as wood, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, so titanium instead of gold, but anyway,
Yeah, right.
Michelle.
I just had a question. When we speak of Cuba and businesses, what percentage would you say that businesses are also the building owners?
The businesses are a minority. Most of the businesses do not own buildings.
Okay,
Can't give you an actual percentage, but that's just my sense.
okay.
Maybe 25% retailers own buildings.
That was another issue with the survey. There was no distinction between business owner and property owner.
I see.
But
And when this sort of
canopy.
canopy was originally built, was that the city's intention or it was the building owners?
The history, I think it was the city, but the reason was there was a migration to the malls and the town center was dying.
I see.
So this was a way to
Make it
make
look like a wall.
it more cute,
Make it more attractive.
more attractive
Okay.
to come back to the city.
And were the building owners, since these were additions to their property, were they involved in paying for it at all?
I don't think so. I don't
So it was
think-
really a city expense?
Yeah, I think it was like part of urban renewal too.
Oh, okay, so those
But
are that
they,
far, right?
they were responsible for a fair amount of the cost of the maintenance.
Right, because it's in addition to a building, the property that's on, but now that's not the case.
But now we remove that, so the city, so another possibility here would be if we look at the timeline, if we do decide this other process might be valuable, we could also look at some stopgap measures in terms of maintenance, so that any parts that are clearly, dangerous, if there are any,
Right.
we would do something to take care of those in the meantime. But I don't think this would take a huge amount of time.
Right.
I mean,
Okay,
by a few months.
so,
I'm just curious, the portion that we did,
wait a minute.
that piece, how's that standing? Like, that's
You illustrate-
no issues. Okay.
Can I ask you a question about the maintenance proposal? Now, we are not in budget season, but John is in budget season. So this isn't, it's not gonna come to us until October, November. Have you
Right.
talked to the mayor
The
about
mayor
this?
suggested that we talk about it early, like now.
Well, I would suggest that you talk to him and see what his intention is about it, because if he puts in the same one and we change, we could do that, but it may make more
So
sense for
essentially
him.
lobby him to raise the number.
I think more is to ask him to make the proposal for the amount of money that we might need in the near future. Put that in the budget.
Wait,
Put it up, I
the
see.
annual maintenance number,
Yeah,
the one that's
Yes.
7,000 now.
yeah,
Yeah,
But before doing renovation.
You have two things going on. You have the immediate need of maintenance, and then you have the long-term goal of potentially, right, renovating or taking down a big time, whatever that is, but yeah, I think the conversation with you with the mayor is lobbying for the additional maintenance money. Because those budget requests are gonna be coming back to my office, hopefully within a week.
right.
So,
I know department heads are already working on everything, so it would be a good idea to
Okay.
start there, that's where it starts, instead of waiting until the end.
Well,
When it
that's
comes to
right.
us, even though we can change it, it may make more sense to start there, and if you get a no, we can always change it.
yeah, their requests are due to my office, I believe, on or about the 15th of
Okay.
August.
So I'll try to have that conversation with him. John, I think there's 3 items. There's the maintenance like painting and electricity and gambling. Then there's if something's leaking or broken, we need to fix it. That's different.
Right, well, that's all can be considered maintenance, though, like in terms of budgetary repairs and maintenance, that's all could be 1 or 2 budget lines. But that's all within the operating budgets.
Well, let's say there's one leak and the whole section has to be replaced, suddenly that's $100,000.
Then that's a bonding request, right, so that's a different, that's different.
What's the bonding request, over 150?
It's more about talking about a maintenance is a repair where a bonding request would typically be for like a complete rehab of a section. A complete rehab, right? Or a repair is like a patch. So we're talking about capital versus
And that,
operating.
and this request comes directly from the mayor? Maintenance.
It would normally come from Public Works to the mayor. Okay, so, your conversation could be between
Public Works also then?
Yeah, I would talk to Ed or Steve.
Yeah.
Or both.
Ed and or Steve, yeah.
Yeah, I would actually say Ed.
Yeah.
Steve Shabbat?
Thank you, sir. These are probably going to be more comments than questions, but I guess I do have a question too, which I think you've answered already, but let me just, it seems as usual, when we have this discussion, which we have quite often, it seems, we come away with a lot of questions, and probably more questions than answers. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way we got the grant money for the project itself. So my concern was, when I saw the $50,000, I really didn't see any breakdown of, what that was going to be used for. But now if I'm understanding correctly, we're not going to use this $50,000 as a bar or anything. We're going to, wait to hear what the task force committee, whatever we're going to call this, has to say and make some recommendations. correct?
That's different.
That's for the long term. We're talking right now about short-term maintenance costs and putting those into the upcoming budget.
Okay, so are we using the $50,000?
No, it's more, we're talking more in the $5,000 to $7,000 range.
It's 50.
Oh, we're talking 50,000.
The request is 50,000, right?
Yes, that's right.
So currently, Steve, the budget is 7,000. It was 5,000 in the 2022 budget.
Always not.
We moved it up to 7,000 last year.
Right,
And the request is 50,000, which isn't, there's not gonna be a vote on that tonight. But they're saying they, you know, the 7,000 is still not enough. Because remember, that also covers the electric work up there too, and just electricity in general.
yeah, I have no doubt $7,000 is a little light to cover the expenses up there, but I'd just like to see justification for 50, that's all.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about getting.
We propose it.
Okay,
In regards to 50, are we looking at using DPW staff to do the maintenance or having to bring in crews? What is our capacity to address that?
And this is a great question, and it's a difficult answer because, you know, Ed Norman says, well, I'd like to have half a guy, half a person's hours working on fixing it. But, you know, then you can't hire for, it's complicated personnel issue. So there's no clear answer. But I want to make a point that we think that electricity should not be part of this budget. That should be somewhere else. Just, it's sort of strange. We don't even know how much electricity is. John, you want to say?
Well, just to clarify, so as part of last year's budget, we moved the pipe plan, the expenses for pipe plan are all within buildings and grounds managed by Public Works. So the budgets are combined per se with the properties that they have to manage. So
Right, so if there's a problem and they fix it, it comes out of that general budget?
it comes out of the buildings and grounds department 1625 is where that would be charged.
Okay. Good to know, but I'm not sure what we'll do with that information.
Well, it gives them, by having a combined budget, gives them a little more latitude where they can move, you know, because when it was just a pipe plan, that was their limit, how much you could spend on a pipe plan, right? Then you can't pull from another. When it's combined, you know, if you have one area that needs a little more this year, you can spend it there versus,
Okay.
right? You can
So Andrew,
you know,
your suggestion, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, the question I have is, you're looking at 50,000 for next year, but would that be the annual budget for subsequent years, or is this really
Yes.
just to address?
No.
Right, but in other words, if the long-term plan, if there's a long-term plan that involves taking it down or something else,
Then after that.
then after that, presumably things change.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah, so it would be behoove us to make the larger repair happen sooner, so we're not.
well, exactly, you're not
Good
continuing
money.
to just make, yes.
So Andrew, to your suggestion, I'll speak to Ed and Steve.
Okay, and I'll speak to the people at BARD and other folks who are interested in this other program, see if they can put something together, a proposal, and we'll go forward.
I hope you get the 18% you said will want to participate.
They've done these hundreds of times in other places, and so it's not pie in the sky stuff. There's a technique.
And we've also been pretty successful with a couple of task forces, not the same idea that Rennie is proposing, but we have been fairly successful with some of the council initiatives we've done in the last couple of years with recruiting really valuable, good public servants and more than what we need, so we have to pick. So much success since your days here.
Good, yeah.
I would imagine, given it's already almost mid-August, right? We wouldn't even be looking, say something got passed in a budget.
This is
Think
the-
work wouldn't occur till next year.
Right.
Not-
But at least the
Either
50,000
or,
that's being approved now would be able to address the immediate
That's right.
physical repair needs.
That's right.
Oh, nothing being approved tonight.
Right, nothing's being done. Okay,
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thanks for representing Cuba.
Thanks for the explanation.
And we will, anybody make a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? Sarah Cassidy, Steve Shabbat, Bob Benson, me. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chloe.
Thanks, Chloe.
Thanks, Mark.
Have a good night, all.